Welcome back to the Great American Movie Review, where we review great British movies.
My name is Mikiah.
My name is Kyle. This week we're going to be talking about the 2008 dark comedy in Bruges. And Bruges takes place in Belgium, of course, Bruges. It's two London Irish hitmen. They're hiding out after a job gone wrong. The film is the first feature from British filmmaker Martin McDonagh. The film was a mild success, taking in almost 39 million on a meager 15 million budget. More significantly, it struck a chord with the film institutions, receiving four BAFTA nominations and an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Screenplay, which I believe went to Milk instead. It went on to become very popular amongst film fans. It's a little bit of a cult classic, might be young enough for it or old enough for it. So, film starts with a very mild, vague narration from Colin Farrell's character Ray.
Yeah,
Talks
I've said
about
in the past that I don't care for narration
I
in
think narration
movies.
can be done well
Generally,
if it's not just straight up exposition for exposition's sake.
this works in this movie 100% because it's literally just setting the tone. It's like, first of all, he's just cussing a ton right off the bat.
I don't know how you want us to deal with that because I kind of want to this movie makes me really want to curse because it is a fantastic piece of script. It
Oh,
is
yeah, if you
so
want to
good.
quote the movie, I feel like go for it. That's your call. I'm not going to, but if you want to, go for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the opening narration is just kind of a nice just setting of the tone. It's got this kind of odd kind of piano score that's a little bit more melancholy than you might expect. But I think it's also partly like just kind of setting this weird kind of it's a little dreamy in a way.
Yeah.
Um, with like the fades just black and then cutting into Bruges and all of that with Colin Farrell just kind of his character talking about how much he hates it already
Yeah.
and just from the very beginning he's just he's just a little prick.
Yeah.
he's like he's just complaining constantly from the beginning. We get more about his character, which makes that a little bit more understandable, and you get more about him later on, but from right at the beginning you're just like, oh, this guy sucks. Yeah, but
I
then we get introduced to pretty quickly, it just kind of gets right to it with um the main characters of Ken and Ray,
yeah.
played by Ray is
Colin
Colin
Farrell and
Farrell and Ken
is
is
Brendan
Brendan
Gleeson. Yeah.
Gleeson, both of who are great in this movie. Just
It's
um
it's almost the it's a trio of characters in a way. Bruges in its own character is its own
right.
character in its own right. Even though it has nothing to say, it has a lot to show, especially because it's very direct with its scene transitions. It's going from one place to the next. Obviously, is Brendan Gleeson's character Ken is going to the places he wants to go, and Ray is just sulking like a 5-year-old boy in a museum.
Right. And they make a big point about the location being important and significant in the
Right.
movie to the point where I don't know if there's a movie that says its actual title more than this one.
Yeah.
Usually with the F word in between. um, but yeah, like it's just he's just constantly saying in effing Bruges.
Yep. So it for the first few minutes it just plays off of that, and it does it in such a, I'll use the term again, direct. It goes from scene transition to scene transition, clearly showing both of their characters. There's no filler in between, and really that's the way it is for the entirety of the movie. There is just no filler
Right.
whatsoever. Every single scene and every single line of dialogue goes from one place to the next, and everything sets up everything. There's payoffs for everything. No loose ends
Oh yeah,
whatsoever.
that's something that I think okay, so this is McDonough's first movie, which McDonough went on and he did Seven Psychopaths after this, and then followed that up with Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which was
Hmm.
obviously in the film world like a really big deal. That one really blew up and got him nominated. This one he got nominated for writing for the screenplay for an Oscar.
Right.
That one got nominated for everything and won a bunch as well. Um, so it's kind of cool seeing like going back and revisiting his first one because I haven't watched it since he's come out with these other ones, and then most recently Banshees of Inisherin, which also kind of blew up the awards circuit,
Now
even though
that
it didn't really
now
win
that's
anything at
also
the
Colin
Oscars.
Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, right?
Yes,
That's the only thing I
also
know
it's
about
like
that
a
movie.
cast reunion
Right.
for In Bruges in that one. But
So I did see Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, but it was many years after this, and I didn't know it was Martin McDonagh. I just knew that it was a fairly big movie for the year.
very different because it's obviously an American cast.
Right.
And then but it has the same kind of like darkness in the humor that's presenting that's
Absolutely.
very distinct and unique to him. And something that McDonough has done really well since this is his first feature, which is just incredibly impressive to me. I know he did play stuff before. I don't know anything about his world before this movie, but in this movie, he has a very strong grasp on what he was trying to do for his first film. And there's that kind of circular kind of pattern that I love about the Coen brothers in their films.
Right.
I think he kind of brings a similar thing to how he does it in his. His has a little bit more of a bite than the Coen brothers stuff does. The Coen
Definitely.
brothers are my favorite filmmakers. Um, so that kind of writing always just works for me. And from the very beginning, they're just setting stuff up to just be paid off. Just either sometimes in the next scene, sometimes like way down by the to the end of the movie.
Yeah,
Just it
so
just
so
keeps
so
going.
to give an example, right before it had to have been like between 10 to 15 minutes before the first date scene between Chloe and Ray, which we'll get to. But they're talking about man comes at you with a bottle, he better be willing to take the consequences. That's a deadly weapon. And
Right.
immediately after Ray punches the Canadian, his girlfriend swings the bottle and he says, "A bottle!" and then immediately punches him and says, "Don't bother." So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well, because they're talking
it's
about the
something so
lollipop
small.
guy.
Right, right.
He's like, he's a lollipop man. He's like, what was a lollipop man gonna do? He's
maybe
like,
maybe he
hands
knows
can be
karate.
deadly
Yep.
weapons.
Maybe he knows karate. What's a lollipop?
Yeah.
What's a 50-year-old lollipop man doing knowing karate?
Yeah.
It's
It's
good
just
stuff.
it's really like and they're talking about he's like because that whole scene setup is him talking about how he's murdered a number of people
Hmm.
and that it's just the profession and is what it is basically. He's like, I never murdered anybody like a kid, but he's like, I did have to murder a lollipop man once. Yeah, it's just really funny kind of circular conversations and everything just kind of comes back around though. Nothing, like you said, it's all very airtight in its presentation
Another
and
thing
it's
with the two
very
characters,
funny.
it's definitely an odd couple setup that
Right.
a lot of movies have. You have complete polar opposites and you put them together and see what happens. With Ray, of course, he's the child. He That was his first job and it was botched. He's a little bit on edge because of that, but he's also just a kid who doesn't know the consequences of his actions. Of
Right.
course, Brendan Gleeson, much older, probably been doing this for a decade or two. So and that's also affects how they see Bruges, most definitely because of the fact that
Right.
Ray doesn't care for it. He just wants to go home or he wants to go to somewhere
He's saying
he
it's
likes.
terrible before they're even there.
Right,
Like on the train ride, he's like, it sucks. He's like, have you
right.
ever been there? He's like, no.
Yeah, yeah.
Why
And
would I
then
go there? It sucks.
and then of course and then Ken, of course, because he's been doing that longer, he likely wants to take it all in because he doesn't know how much time he has left. Obviously,
Right.
in the line of work that he's in, there's much more risk involved. So, he, whether he's interested or he definitely seems to be interested, especially with the church and
Yeah,
the
he's calmer.
supposed
He may
vial
be,
of Jesus Christ's
yeah,
blood. So
he's maybe
obviously,
not done, yeah, he's maybe not done this exact thing before,
mhm.
but he's been in the game long enough that he just knows how to, you just got to lay low. You just got to kind of make the most of a situation that's usually not that exciting, but he ends up, just going to see sights in the town and he just wants to just kind of relax and enjoy himself while he's in this town, but not like do too much either.
He's also actually doing the most important thing when laying low, and that's to be very was it is it it's either conspicuous or inconspicuous. Is it inconspicuous? Be incognito essentially.
Yeah,
You
inconspicuous.
don't want to
If you're
be noticed.
conspicuous, people are noticing you.
Yeah, so it's the opposite of that, inconspicuous. You want to be unnoticed. So and Ray, of course, on edge, he's willingly putting himself into situations that will get him injured, take for instance the Chloe date night. So
Right.
yeah.
So the first like kind of scene that we really get to highlight these characters
Hmm.
once they get into town is when they're sitting outside the steps, the tower, which is just I guess a local spot that you get to go up. It's 366 steps, a kind of tight little stairway up to like a cool view of this little town.
I haven't been to
Um,
Bruges, but it's I believe the cathedral in Bruges, which is one of the more well-known cathedrals in Europe when it comes
oh
to
yeah.
medieval architecture. So
Mm,
yeah, it would definitely be a tourist spot, and that's where
yeah,
we
for
find the
sure.
Americans.
Yeah, which I mean, the guy who plays the American, I don't know, he's if you know, but he's in Shaun of the Dead as well. He's clearly not American. His accent is a little iffy.
Hmm.
But he's the big zombie in Shaun of the Dead that they're throwing records at.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, this scene, first of all, this scene really highlights right off the bat that if you are a sensitive type person
yeah,
who does not like to hear certain things said that are really mean spirited, this is not the movie for you. Immediately, this person comes up and he's going to go up the steps. It's American tourists. They're asking Colin Farrell if he's been up there. He hasn't, but he tells them, yeah, it's terrible.
yeah,
It sucks. Um, and they're like, what? Are you serious? He's like, well, you shouldn't even go up there. He's like, why? And then he calls them all elephants. And then he chases him around and kind of stumbling and just kind of mocks them. Uh, it's just like this once again hammering that like Ray is just he's the worst at the beginning of the movie before you understand more about his situation and everything. I mean, he's still the worst even
yeah.
after that, but like he
It definitely
becomes a
doesn't help
human at a point.
his deadpan throughout the
Right.
movie doesn't help.
No,
Um,
no, he's very deadpan and the movie is obviously not like oh, this is okay, but it's leaning into it really hard to highlight a really just dark aspect of going through grief in this movie of like what happened and what he's trying to process.
it definitely isn't supporting it. What I'd say is it's showing something that is very human.
Right.
Better than most movies, in my opinion.
Right. And then later you find out that that guy who went up the stairs
Has a heart
anyway,
attack.
like
Yeah,
despite yeah, has a heart attack and died up there, which is why they had to shut it down. Once again going into
that's
that
yeah,
circular kind of
that's what
writing.
I'm talking about. It sets something up and then it knocks it down. It's everything is a domino to be knocked down eventually.
Right. Even like a little scene like that you don't really think much of. You're like, "Oh,
Something
that's
played off
just
for comedy, essentially.
mean-spirited and kind of fat phobic." It's like that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, then so you get that scene, and then Ken goes up the tower and enjoys the view. Whatever. We move on from there.
Well, another thing as well, when Ken comes down, he also says the same thing. Hey, you shouldn't go
Right.
over there.
Just
They're
trying to be
very narrow.
polite.
He's
Right.
he's not even yeah, he's not even talking about like you shouldn't go over there, you'll get stuck. It's like a
Well,
you
because
shouldn't go
like
over there. It might be uncomfortable for you, and it's hammering home if even if you have good intentions, there's going to be some offense taken for
right,
most things.
and and you see in that scene where he's going, where Ken's going up the tower,
Hmm.
that Ken, who is not like the most in shape person in the world,
No,
he gets winded going up there. He gets sweaty, and he's like, just trying to get to the top of it. But he really enjoys the
yeah,
view. But then when he gets
so
back
he
down,
would know that this is very
right.
uncomfortable. It's a good view, but maybe don't go up there.
It's like what we were talking about in Pitch Black, where it's like they were in the desert, but then it didn't really seem very hot.
Hmm.
In this situation, it's kind of exactly what I was saying, where he really does look tired walking up that tower, which
Yep.
makes him saying that to them in a minute when he gets back down not an asshole thing to do. I guess that's me
Yeah.
breaking the not swearing thing. I
Oh,
didn't
you
mean to,
fucked
but
up.
here we are.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I did say ass in the Pitch Black one. So
As
there,
long as it's not in the first couple minutes, we're good.
like I
Yeah,
said,
so
I fully intend to curse because of the fact that the dialogue is so particular with
right.
how it words
It
it.
is. Yeah, and there's the whole you get a little conversation with just Ray finds on the phone at some point in here in the movie,
Mhm.
and just like the little tiny bit of Ray Fiennes on the phone made me go like, Ray Fiennes is so good in this movie. Like,
I
he's not
really
even in the movie for 2/3 of it, like
I
physically.
yeah. Yeah.
But he's just got such like a specific way of speaking, and then when you see him, he looks exactly like the guy that would speak that way.
Mhm.
It's just perfect.
Not only that, but he acts exactly like it, and even just the
Right,
so the co-owner Maria who takes the message from him, just
right,
that alone, it's that
right. Just the message typed out as it is.
yes, it
Yeah,
is so
yeah.
good, but
That's when you hear him first. It's like you hear his voice reading the letter.
Mhm.
That's what it is, telling them that they need to like stay in that night.
Oh,
And
it's so
then
good. And then
yeah,
the first phone call, the first actual phone call, you can really tell that it reinforces it, but he's much more it's much more reserved as a pragmatic thing talking
right,
about Ray, of course, because in the first one he's angry because he gave them specific orders that they disobeyed. In the second one he's giving the orders and being much more reserved about it. But
right.
he's still that personality.
Yeah, so then they go back and they're at the hotel at night, and then Ray is trying to get Ken to go out, but Ray doesn't want to like do anything. He just wants to like go to the pub basically. And Ken's like, no, but then Ray convinces him to go out by telling him, we can go do whatever you want, look at architecture and
Right.
stuff.
I bet the
So they
architecture
go
in the
out.
night looks a lot better, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then they find the film set, which is just kind of like there's a lot going on in this movie in terms of its setting.
Hmm.
That's kind of where it's like the characterization of Bruges itself, because it's right around the Christmas season, and so you still have some Christmas stuff just up and around.
Right.
And then you also have this film being shot, this Belgian film that has I frankly, I don't know the proper vernacular for what is the thing to call little people now. I don't know
I
what it is in
I
this
I
movie's time. I do
I
remember it being, oh, as the movie says, dwarf is the proper term.
it's almost certain it. So I know the least offensive is most certainly dwarf because dwarfism
Right.
is this is the name of the disorder or syndrome.
For the sake
Dwarfism
of
is the
this
name of it.
conversation, within the context of talking about this movie too, like that's what they use. So,
Right.
because they obviously say worse things. Because he's making a whole conversational point. He even makes a
Yeah,
point calling out
he
himself.
makes the point. Yeah.
Oh, of course
Like I
they want
said,
to
the
kill themselves
deadpan,
as
it
they're
works
calling
so
him
well with
this all the
him.
time. Yeah, it just
It
does.
works so well. And
Uh,
it's almost charming in a way. You can see it as
yeah,
offensive, but it's almost charming in a way.
right. Like yeah, Ray. Like that's the thing with Colin Farrell that he's really good at. He's a very charming on-screen presence,
Mhm.
even when he's playing a character like this, who's just kind of like
On paper,
yeah, and he talks
wouldn't
so
seem that.
fast.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like working his way, but he's able to somehow worm himself out of being the asshole in the
Hmm.
conversation, you know? Like he's just quick on his feet with the way he's thinking and also clearly like very anxious all the time.
Yeah. Which understandable given the circumstances.
Yeah. Which this
Um,
introduces us to Chloe because he meets this girl on the film set.
right.
That the actress is Flora Delacour
In
in
Harry Potter, yeah.
Harry Potter.
That's
She's
actually the
also
first
in
thing I
Tenet.
noticed when I watched this movie. Wait, who does she play in
Yeah,
Tenet?
she's the girl in Tenet who like is telling him how it works when she's like,
Oh
you drop the
yeah.
bullet, you pick up the bullet.
Man,
That's her.
uh,
So
that's confusing.
those are the only other movies I've seen her in, but I saw her in this one. I was like, oh, I recognize her. Where do I recognize her from? And it was those movies.
Yeah.
And so with the Chloe character, there's some more plot lines going on, adds more kind of stuff just to go on in the movie. Because so here is when we, after this scene, we finally get the flashback
Right.
to what actually happened beforehand. And this is where we actually understand Ray finally and why he is the way that he is right now and being so anxious. Because when it flashes back, it's him and a priest, and it's a really funny scene up
It is.
until a point. because he's talking to the priest and he's like confessing to murder, and
And
the
it's
priest is
his
like,
murder.
who did you murder? And he goes, you, or
You
something. I
father.
forget
Yeah,
yeah, you, father. And then he shoots him through the wall, which, by the way, the father is played by Ciaran Hinds, who's popped up in a lot of things recently, like Game of Thrones and even the Justice League, the Snyder Cut version. Which now
good.
that's becoming a thing, like Ang Lee's Hulk, that we just keep bringing up.
Yes, yes, Game of Thrones and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Wow, two amazing projects that ended very well.
Yes, absolutely. But then
Well,
you get,
he's Dumbledore's brother, isn't he?
yes, he is Dumbledore. He's Aberforth.
Because
Yeah,
that's what I know him from.
right. He's a great actor, and I like it whenever I see him in things. I'm like, oh, he's great. But he's not even credited in this movie, which
Yeah.
is kind of interesting. But so you get him talking to the priest and then shooting the priest, but he doesn't fully kill the priest right in the little confessional booth. And the priest is running away, and as he's shooting at the priest, the priest says, "Little boy," and you're like, oh, "Why do you
Yeah.
say that?" And then the camera keeps panning back, or in this case, it's a
It's
dolly
it's
dollying back,
it's a good shot
and
as well
yeah,
because it shows the priest's reaction, the priest falling, it shows Ray's reaction, and then it pans out and then shows the little boy.
right. It's got that great dolly shot, just
Hmm.
pulling back until you see like this boy's face, and then you just see the chunk of his head that got shot off, which is just so shocking and
Hmm.
just like devastating. That in a scene that was kind of funny up to that point, even though it was a scene of murder, it just got really dark by the end of that scene, which
Yeah,
kind of
you said in
shapes the Ray
Untouchables
character.
you like that movies aren't scared to show children dying, so
Right. And
that's
then
why
here
I
we are
chose
again.
this.
You're like, here we are. It's like, we're going to do a whole series of movies where they murder
Oh
children.
shit, here we go
I got
again.
Mimic for you coming up next.
Oh no.
But so, yeah, we get that scene, which I think finally lets me not just hate Ray in the movie. Like
Yeah.
I said, he has some charm despite his obnoxious qualities. But
Well, something I'm definitely not a gun guy, but I was taught very strict safety rules. So there are
you
four
and I were both in Boy
and
Scouts. We're
Boy
both
Scouts.
Eagle Scouts.
Correct.
So we understand like
Yeah,
gun
the
safety
so
principles.
the four main it's another pet peeve of mine when it comes to movies is mostly trigger discipline. Always keep your
Right.
finger off the trigger until you
It's always a problem in
intend to fire.
movies.
Every single time. Even in this
I tell that to my
in
nephew all the time
I don't hold it against some movies. Like
with
this
his
movie,
Nerf
they
guns.
are hitmen. Obviously, they don't care about trigger discipline. In
Right.
Pulp Fiction, obviously they're hitmen. They're contract killers for Marcellus Wallace. Obviously, they don't care. But some things to me, like it was a small scene in Untouchables, but he bursts into his daughter's room. Kevin Costner. He bursts into his daughter's room to see if she's okay. Gun in hand, finger on trigger, and then picks up said daughter, still with gun in hand, still with
Right.
finger on trigger. Um, and to be fair, it is the 1930s. They probably didn't teach trigger discipline or care, but typically what you would do is holster your weapon, then pick
Yeah.
up child. Um,
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't just run in there with the gun still out. I did think about that watching
yeah,
that scene in Untouchables.
but I digress. But I think it for a movie to show uh, what I think is a very crucial point in gun safety is know what is your target and what's behind it.
Right.
So if it's very rare that movies actually show that. So that's
Which in this
kudos to
case,
me.
that's a plot point
It's a
for it
plot
to,
point,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
multiple times.
multiple times. Yep, multiple times. Even that's called back. It's
Yeah.
good. Um,
And then, so with the scene with Chloe, he sets up a date with her.
mhm.
But then they get the news from Harry, their boss, who's Ray Fiennes' character, to they have to stay in for the night because he's gonna call them to give them more information and updates.
Well, that wasn't the
Ray,
date. That wasn't the date scene though, right? During the
this was
date scene is
before
the
the date
first phone
scene
call, the
because
actual
so
phone
what
call. But
happens
when he
is
sets up the night that they go out and see the film production, that's when they that Maria gets the
right,
message from Harry.
because they get back, yeah, they
Hmm.
get back, and then
Ooh,
Ray convinces Ken.
I
He's
can't,
like, well, only one of us needs to be here.
right. I
And I've
I
already got a date that I told you about yesterday.
I cannot. This is a quick thing when
Yeah.
they're I think they're two names. They're two fake names. I think Ray is like Cromwell or something like that. It's not
Oh
Cromwell,
yeah.
but it's Cromwell or something like that. And Bleakley is Ken's. And Maria says, "Mr. Bleakley," and he says, "No, no, Cromwell, no, Bleakley, yes." And it's a small thing, but
Which
it's
those names are a reference, I think, to an old show or something that this movie is
wouldn't surprise
inspired by
me.
in some way.
Wouldn't
I think that
wouldn't
I
surprise me.
saw that at some point that that was the case.
But I just love that little back and forth of
Right.
like Maria's trying to get his attention and Ken doesn't even know his fake name or he's unsure about his
Right,
fake
right.
name. Which I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
as
just
a
all very
hitman,
quick.
he would
Yeah,
have
and
tons of
very
aliases. So yeah, it makes
right.
sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
we can continue. So they bring up the date when he comes back the first time talking about, and it's a great scene of how loud Ray is like coming in and Ken is trying to sleep. Ray comes in
Right.
and 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 he's like, okay, okay,
He's
I'll be quiet. But wait, I got to take out my contacts. And it just continues on. He talks about the date,
brushing his teeth.
brushing his teeth. He talks about the date, and Ken agrees with him, except he has to do during the day everything that Ken wants to
Right.
do.
For the first for 2 parts of the day, we got
Hmm.
to do what I want to do,
Yep.
and he agrees to that.
And that's when we get the church scene with the vial of supposedly Jesus's blood,
Right.
which um it's compared to the rest of the movie, it's overshadowed. But I just love the point that Ken brings up because obviously Ray doesn't want to be there, and he's talking about Jesus's blood, and he says, "So I'm gonna jump the rope. I'm gonna go take a look at Jesus's blood. If you want to come with." And he says, "Do I have to?" And he says, "Have to? Do you have to see Jesus's blood? No, you don't have to."
Right.
I love how he turns that against him. It's like you don't want to see Jesus's blood, supposedly Jesus's blood. Come on, what are you doing? And
Right. It's just kind of the disdain for him at
right,
that point, because at this point in the movie, Ken is kind of really embracing Bruges,
right,
and it's also hammering home the kind of different perspectives because the movie has a lot going on with conversations because they also go to that museum in a later or in a scene in the same day
right.
where they're looking at all the artwork and it talks about purgatory, and they
Purgatory,
talk
hell,
about
and heaven.
purgatory,
Right.
and so this whole waiting period in the movie is definitely this kind of purgatory state for like not knowing what's going to happen
It's a
for
bit of
other characters.
an overview, but my theory about this movie is that the entire thing is purgatory, and there's an angel and a demon both fighting for uh, a, a prosecution and a defender in a sense. I see
You
Ken
and
as
Ken
the
and Harry
defender.
in this,
Ken and Harry are the defender and the
and
prosecutor.
the
I'd
demon.
argue
Oh yeah,
it's purgatory. It's essentially a trial.
right,
Um, Bruges is essentially purgatory. So in the movie, it's referenced a little bit. Uh, Ray calls Bruges hell, and in my
right.
view, it's more purgatory.
Which
Which,
I think is hammered home by the end of the movie
mhm,
too.
absolutely.
Um,
Um,
yeah, and
oh, I
so yeah,
was
you get
a
you know,
small note. This kind of shows that there are three different between the three air quotes main characters. There are three views on Bruges. Obviously, Ray is very
right,
apathetic or hateful towards it. Ken is very intrigued by it, and then Harry has some insane level nostalgia for it. He's only been there once as a kid, and
which is
so
just
he has just an obsessive love for it. So
right,
I like the play off of that, and that's hammered home by the first phone call. So
right,
obviously Ken's just like intrigued by it. He likes the canals and bridges and that kind of thing. He likes seeing the sights, and he and Harry calls it a fairy tale world essentially, or like a fairy tale. And Ken is like, I wouldn't go that far, but sure, yeah, I guess you can see that. So it's
right.
just playing
Which
off the three levels of how somebody might see Bruges.
yeah, so this is when the movie really like I think the movie's great up
Hmm.
to this point. This is when the movie really takes off to me because you get like the dinner scene where Ken convinces or Ray convinces Ken to let him go out eat because he's like we only need one person here to get the phone call, don't we?
Right.
And then we get the phone call scene right after that. But the dinner scene is great because you got like him and the girl and just continuing the great dialogue and kind of that circular, very dark, very humorous kind of thing going on there. And they actually have a pretty good interplay.
Yeah, they
And then you
yeah,
have
they do.
the Canadian guy that's at the table next to him, and she like blows smoke in his face, and he's like, "Unbelievable," and then it breaks out into he chops the guy and he like slaps the guy out and knocks him unconscious,
Yep.
and then the guy's wife like swings the bottle at him. Like you said,
Oh,
bottle
a
earlier.
bottle. Yep.
Right.
I love the delivery of that line. A bottle. Oh no.
Right. It's just really funny. That whole scene
Yep.
is really funny. And then it ends up going well for him up to that point in the date that we can tell.
Mhm.
And then it goes to back to Ken in the hotel with waiting for the phone call, which is also just such a funny scene. Which, okay, I will say that scene opens with a television screen
Right.
showing a classic film. That film is Touch of Evil, which is very well
I know
known
nothing about that.
for. Okay, that movie is very well known for its one shot take. That movie gets brought up frequently in other movies, even or shown in a similar way to this one, where
Oh,
you
so
just
it's
kind of
it's playing off the fact that the phone call is just one gigantic take.
the phone shows all one gigantic take, which it from like a cinematography perspective,
Yeah.
it's like a small room. It's not that complicated of a shot,
No,
but it
not
is
compared to like
interesting
1917
dialogue.
or
Right, but
something
it's
like
really
that.
interesting. It's really interesting dialogue though that and it's a lot of dialogue because it's a phone call and it's just you just get Ken's side of it
Yep.
visually because Harry at this point is still just like the a kind of enigma of a
Harry's
boss
Harry's
that
a,
exists.
Up to this point, Harry's a little bit like a combination of Charlie from Charlie's Angels. Obviously, not going to show his face, but there's a particular reason for that. And like
Right.
Jaws, like he's just an unknown monster that will eventually appear,
Right.
but you don't know when, you don't know where, and you don't know how mad he'll
Right. But
be.
this scene is so funny because it starts off with like not just first of all, there's the irony of him telling him to send Ray out of the room
Right,
when they had already like
when he
had
had already
Ray
done
out
that.
for the night. He had already done that, and then him saying, "Oh, I'll tell him to leave," and
Yeah,
then him like staying on the phone, like being like, "No, like, what do you say?" Like making sure he
but
got
it
everything,
yeah, but
and like,
it's so tense with the oh he's going to find bowling. I don't remember Bruges having
this is not a
bowling
bowling
alleys.
alley
It
in
must
Bruges. Well, you're
it
gonna have to
must
tell him.
it must be
He's like, "You'll
contemporary.
find that out."
It
Yeah,
must be recent.
yeah, yeah. It's so funny.
Ken is treating it like an interrogation, but Harry's genuinely trying to get information from him.
And he's doing that thing where he's like just play acting. It almost feels like when you're lying to your parents,
Right.
just on the phone and you're like having to make up more than what's going on. Like, oh,
Exactly.
my
He's
friend
he's
just got
digging a
home.
deeper hole for no reason at all.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, he could still be out there. He's like, you didn't give him enough time. He's like, go check. So he like stands up. He goes thump 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 thump. Walks over to the door, opens it up, rolls his eyes, closes the door.
Like shrugs and then walks back to the phone.
Right, and then this scene also though, then after we get to that point, he starts talking to him about just it's also just really funny. Just Harry's whole character is just so darkly funny because he's like, "How's he liking it? How you guys liking it?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't really think it's his thing." It's like,
What you
what do you
mean not
mean
his
it's
thing?
not his thing?
How could
How
Bruges
could it
not be
not
some
be his thing?
some
It's a fairy tale town. And it just kind of goes he like freaks out when he says it's not his thing, which
Yeah.
then makes more sense once he says basically that he sent him here so he could experience it before he died because he's going to have Ken kill him,
Yeah.
which Ken is obviously conflicted about, but like he's going to do his job is
Yeah,
what it
it's an
kind of
order
seems
from a
like.
boss,
Which I want to
essentially.
just one thing that I just love about this movie and just McDonough's writing in general is his scripts are to me and watching his films play out just kind of a joy to watch, especially in a landscape of films that are pretty formulaic. His movies are so just like they're just fresh. Like
Yeah.
I don't know anything that's going to happen next. It could go in any direction and that would make sense for it. It just always feels like it's right on the edge of just so many different tones and feelings, both comedically and darkly. It could go either way at any point, and sometimes it goes one way and sometimes it goes another, and frequently it goes both ways.
So the first time I saw this movie, I caught on to most of it because of the fact that I noticed it was a little bit like an Edgar Wright script. Everything is set up and everything will eventually be played out
Right.
and in a payoff kind of sense. But unlike some movies that'll be very predictable. I find this to be there is no lazy setup for payoff because it's all smartly written
Right.
in
Like I
in a
said,
way
the
that I can follow
filmmakers.
along. I can guess what's going to happen. I probably know what's going to happen. When it eventually happens, I think myself smarter for understanding it instead of oh, that was kind of lazy. So
Right.
I like that kind of script in a sense.
Yeah, like it's most comparable to me to the Coen brothers, but the Edgar Wright comparison, I also thought of that specifically with the way he sets stuff up and then kind of has those things echoed back
Right.
um, later on. So
More so specifically with because he's only done 6 movies, the Cornetto trilogy, Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and Last Night Soho. So
yeah,
it's more so with the Cornetto trilogy,
right.
the
The
tightness
Cornettos
of the
specifically.
scripts. Yeah,
Yeah,
all three of them are very very smartly written.
right.
I don't know if smartly
Which
is
I think
a
that's
word,
where
but I'm hoping it
not to
is because if it's not, that's very ironic, isn't it?
either way, it doesn't matter. This is America.
That's true.
So yeah, but
I'm
with
just a dumb American elephant.
yeah, and not to go too into like the Edgar Wright stuff, but I do think that one of the benefits of this style of writing is the comedic nature of it, and I do think that Edgar Wright's strongest movies are the ones where he's leaning more into his comedic sensibilities. Because I do like Baby Driver, and I'm kind of iffy on Last Night in Soho, but those
Honestly,
movies
same.
were
Yeah.
yeah, like but his those three movies
It's
and Scott Pilgrim as well,
to
like
me,
they're just
Soho
so
is a fine
funny.
movie, but for Edgar Wright standards, very poor.
But yeah, getting back to In Bruges. So now at this point, you go right to the next day basically, and you get kind of more with Ray
So
grappling.
I cannot remember the exact score for the scene, but and I noticed what I noticed first when watching this movie was the polar opposite. Obviously, Ken is trying to be as quiet as possible when leaving
Right.
the hotel, and Ray, whether he's awake or not, obviously he's feeling the effects of he's made a decision today, and the the way the score works, the way the shot goes from Ken leaving to Ray, it's it's a brilliant sequence of events.
Yeah, which to note to the score, the composer is Carter Burwell, who is a famously underrated
Isn't he
composer
the
in
composer for
Hollywood.
the Coen brothers mostly?
Yes, and I was about to say that
Okay.
also kind of
Yeah, I
builds
knew
for me
something.
in my mind watching it. The kind of Coen Brothers comparison is that Carter Burwell kind of score in this has very much those
A, a
draws that connection in my brain.
a good piano score is like cocaine to me. It's just so good.
Especially when they kind of turn it on its head at the end, but I'll
Hmm.
get to that. Uh yeah, so you get the scene at this point where which this is a really once again highlighting what I really like about taking things that we know about movies and kind of turning them on their head. Because you get him going and he finds Ray at the playground. And Ray, then he's walking up with the gun and he's going to kill Ray. Or this is actually, okay, first he goes to the guy to get the
Yeah,
gun, which is
he
a,
goes to
it's
Yuri
a really funny scene because
talking
it's just
about the
him.
alcoves.
He's just obsessed with the word alcoves and trying to figure out if that's the right word.
Nope,
It's just
nooks and
that one,
crannies,
that
man.
scene's just funny.
Nooks and crannies.
Right. Nooks and crannies. Like, yes, that's a good word.
Better than alcoves.
Yeah, so you get that whole scene, which once again that comes back later too.
I also love
Um,
the way that scene is set up. Obviously, it's going to be very professional. I mean, there's going to be some small talk when it comes to alcoves. I
yeah,
imagine when it comes to hitmen, but him inspecting the suppressor, inspecting the gun, inspecting the
right,
bullets, he's going to do all of that, and he's going to do all of it in such a way that he's done before. So it's short and professional,
right. It gets to the point,
and
and it also
he
shows
doesn't
his
want to.
conflict.
Yeah, he doesn't want to tip off Yuri that he's having conflicted feelings about this as well,
Right,
which obviously
and
doesn't
at this
work.
point,
Yuri hates
yeah,
that
it
notion.
feels like as an audience member, it's like I don't fully know if he's gonna go through with it, but that's part of just the unpredictability of the movie.
Right.
I don't feel like he's going to go through it, but you don't fully know. So then we get the scene at the playground where he's walking up with the gun
Hmm.
and the silencer
Another
on it,
great
and you get
shot.
the
It just
shot. Right,
follows the gun the whole way.
right, and So then you have Ken, he's
And
watching the kids on
uh,
the playground, which this is a horrible place to do this, especially after what you just
well,
did by
no,
murdering a kid.
I think that's what Ray was. I think it was very. So obviously he left the note that says I did this so that Marie doesn't have to clean it up. But I think he
Right.
went to a park because he was this that was his way of making amends for shooting a child. Was like thinking of
Killing of
children.
himself in a park.
No, it's well, I'm obviously Ray is not the smartest person or the most.
Right. I can see that though, him kind of wallowing
He yeah
almost.
he wants to wallow in the pain by reminding himself of children because I
This is
assume
the strongest source of that reminder, the
right
most painful place he could go to make himself feel that way. If his goal is to kill himself, that makes sense
right
to like make yourself feel even worse by watching happy
it's yeah
children play.
it's purely symbolic for Ray. It's not a
Right.
that there's no he doesn't care what happens after he does it.
Yeah. But this is one of those really darkly funny moments where Ken's walking up with the gun and he's starting to point it at Ray, and then Ray pulls out a gun and puts it up to his head.
And he says
And Ken
instinctively,
pointing the gun at
obviously,
him.
Ray, don't.
Yeah. Yeah, he goes, Ray, don't.
Which
Right as he's a
which I got the impression that he was going to do it, but obviously when you see that, it doesn't compute. So,
Right.
especially a hitman is hired to kill people that don't want to do that to themselves.
Right.
So if he sees that, he's just like, what are you doing? His brain just automatically and voluntarily goes, just don't do it.
Right. And then
And so
it
now he's
doesn't let
stuck in the
you.
situation of, nothing. I don't have anything. Nothing behind my back.
Right. So then typically in a movie, I think you would sit with some dramatic irony and have
Yep.
that become a source of tension within the movie. But this movie immediately diffuses that
Yep.
by making him go like, "You're gonna shoot me." And then he goes, "Yes, I was going to kill you." And then they just have a conversation about it, which is just really funny that that's the way it goes.
Well,
And then he doesn't even find the suicide note
I like the back and
until
forth.
after he
I
gets
like the
back.
yeah, I like the back and forth of you can't do that, and he says I'm allowed, and he says no, you're not, and he says but you are.
Yeah.
um, but they eventually talk, and I assume they're still in the playground because they're in like one of the like toy or car looking things. But they both inspect each other's weapons, which as hitman, obviously you're gonna that's just something I imagine you'd do. But Ken takes Ray's gun, puts it in his pocket. Ray's trying to get it back, and one of my favorite lines in the movie uh, is Ray saying, "Great, I'm, uh, I'm suicidal. My mate tried to kill me. My gun got taken, and we're still in fucking Bruges." And the
Right.
last part is the one that he's the most angry about.
Right.
The
Out of all of
delivery
those
of it,
things.
yeah, the delivery of it, that last part is the one is the deal breaker.
Right.
Is one of my favorite things. His
It is.
disdain for
And then
Bruges trumps all.
so after that conversation, uh the next like major thing that happens is Ken gets Ray out of Bruges
Yeah,
by putting him on a train. And
to
then
just a random
after,
place in Europe.
yeah, to just go somewhere and he
Yeah.
doesn't know where he's off to. And then he calls Harry right away and it's like, "Do you hear that?
Did you hear
Do
that?
you know what that is?" It's like a train. I know what a train sounds like. He's like, well, then he tells him that Ray was alive and he let Ray live
Hmm.
and he sent him on a train and he doesn't know where he's going
Right.
or where he'll be. Which then and then he hangs up and this is where we
Oh
finally
man.
get, which you could talk about
Yep.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
So
scene where you get Ray Fiennes.
yep. So you get Ray finds he has a second where he's processing it. He knows what he has to do, and then he just breaks the phone for a solid 15 seconds. His wife comes over, says, "Harry, it's an inanimate fucking object." And Ray finds lets out the perfect delivery of "You're an inanimate fucking object." It's
Right. And
the
it's even
perfect
funnier because
line.
then it goes to like the next scene. It just cuts to him talking to his kids, and you understand that he's telling them that he has to leave and go
Yes.
away. And then he apologizes to his wife. He's like,
I'm
"I'm sorry
sorry
I
I
called
called
you
you
an
an
inanimate
inanimate
object.
fucking
I was
object.
upset." It's just so funny. Sometimes that's where it's like sometimes the dialogue like circles back like later, and sometimes it just circles back like literally in the
It's too
next scene.
perfect. It is just too perfect. The the way if I were to apologize for calling somebody something, I would not repeat the exact phrase. But he just goes, "I'm sorry for calling you an inanimate fucking object." It's so
Right.
great. It's good.
And then we get Harry arriving in
Hmm.
Bruges, and he sees Ken
So
at
it's
the
it's
outside.
interesting to note he doesn't automatically go to the hotel because
Right.
he looks at it later. But the
First, he has to get the gun
yes, he does have to get he does have to get the gun
from the
from
guy in the
Yuri, and
alcoves.
we didn't talk about it's either Eric or Eric, Chloe's
Right.
ex
We didn't talk
boyfriend or
about the
partner.
drug
Yeah,
scene.
we didn't talk. We also didn't talk about the two Menki hookers and a racist dwarf.
Right. That whole scene is kind of insane, and the epitome of that whole if you're super sensitive, it's
Oh
not for
yeah,
you.
yeah. It's definitely not for you. I just
Because yeah, you get the dwarf character.
it's more comedic. It doesn't really do very much for the plot. It's more so for the characters. But I still
Right.
love those scenes because of how dark comedic they are, and also
Right. Because so
they
yeah,
play off each other so well.
going back a little bit because it's important because
Yeah,
everything in this movie is important because it's pretty tight. So after the phone call with Ken, it cuts back to
and the
the
date
date,
scene.
which is
Yeah,
continuing, and you get the scene where they're like making out, and then you get the guy coming in with the gun, and he like pulls
yeah.
him off of her, and
Eric
it's
is
like,
there to rob him.
yeah, Eric is there to rob him in that moment, and then he, being a hitman, knows how to disarm the guy pretty easily,
Yeah,
so he does, because he's like a two-bit guy basically,
yeah. No,
and
he's yeah he's
so he's like, it's just blanks, and then he's like, he shoots it once, and then he points back at his face, and he shoots him in the eye with the blank and blinds him,
well
which
because Eric made the bet that oh because it's just blanks, no, it can't do anything for you. And another
right.
reason it's this movie is so smart about guns because blanks actually are lethal.
Oh yeah, they can kill you.
They can kill you if you're close up. It's not just the projectile, it's also the shockwave and it's the
Right.
yeah, it's the concussion effect.
It's still an explosion.
Yes, it is still a very powerful explosion. So,
Yeah, so you get that whole series of events, and then the girl Chloe has to take Eric because apparently they run a scam together,
mhm.
basically, where she takes guys, but then she
Yeah,
seems to
she takes
actually
tourists
like
and
him.
then he robs
Yeah,
them.
yeah, then she actually liked him though, is what I gather from it,
So,
but she still has to take Eric to the hospital.
yeah, so
So
she
she leaves, and he steals her drugs because she does supply drugs. She wasn't lying about that when she said she gave drugs to the set
I
people.
also just love the deadpan of Eric is like crying and screaming in the background and Ray's just like, "You're leaving
Right.
me? You're leaving me?" Yeah.
So then, yeah, so then he goes back to the pub where and he finds Ken there who's drinking his sorrows away because he doesn't want to have to kill Ray.
Right.
And he comes in and he's on coke, and then uh
Which I
he
love the
offers Ken
shot.
coke.
I love the shot of Ray looking at the dwarf and the prostitute and Ken just comes in and rests his chin on Ray's shoulder like and the way that his eyes are like his
Right,
pupils are dilated and he's just like feeling the effects of cocaine. I
right.
love that shot.
I'm
But
forgetting. I feel bad calling the character the dwarf the whole time. I'm forgetting the character's actual name.
his name is Jimmy.
Jimmy. That's
We
right, because
didn't
he's an
really yeah, we
American.
didn't really get to talk about him, but yeah,
No.
Jimmy has a really good line as well. Ken is talking about um the girl that he shows up with and Jimmy says, "Not my girl. It's a prostitute." And Ken says, "I have no idea where you find prostitutes in Belgium." And Jimmy says, "Yeah, you just have to go to the right places. A brothel works." And then just looks
Right.
at him. I I love that even Jimmy has some lines. But
Right. Well, even the prostitute has some lines
right.
because then when he's talking to her, um, and she mentions Amsterdam,
It's like that's where
and he's
she's
like, "Isn't
from.
that yeah?
Yeah.
Isn't that place just full of hookers or something like that, full of prostitutes?" He's like,
And
"Yeah,
he's
that's why I moved here."
and that's how she introduces that she is a prostitute. It's like, yeah, that's
Right.
why I moved here. I thought I would get more.
Yeah.
It's good.
So yeah, then you get the scene of them where they're all doing drugs together, and
Which I think is important because it sets up that Jimmy is a little bit too weird on cocaine, but
yes,
it also sets up that Ken was married she was black and she was murdered.
Right. It gives a little bit more to Ken's character.
Yeah, it does.
And this weird race war that Jimmy is on drugs talking
I,
about.
I love it. Eventually comes up again, but he won't
Right.
even take the Vietnamese.
So yeah, so now coming back around to where we were before
Yeah,
we remember
this
that
is
we
Harry.
skipped a whole big
This is
section.
Harry spotting Ken at the restaurant. So he sits down, and they have possibly the greatest conversation in movie history.
It's great
It's real good.
because he's like he's because Ken at this point is just like no BS. I'm just gonna
He is
be
resigned to the
completely
fact that
honest
he
with
is
you.
going to die.
Right. And he's like he deserves to live. He's talking about Ray to
Yeah,
Harry. He's like Ray deserves to live. He's young, he messed up, but he deserves to grow and change.
yeah.
And yeah, Harry's like, what about me? Kind of. And he's like, what am I be growing and changing? He's like, you're only gonna grow
To a
into a bigger
Yeah, you're only
C
gonna turn
word
into bigger.
and keep making more C word kids. And then
Yeah,
he says, "You retract that bit about my."
we
I want to say the line, but I'm not going to. Right.
but I also like the fact that Harry's very thick or thin-skinned, but he's
Right.
obviously angry, but he goes over the top when he talks about his kids. So
Yeah.
it's an
Because
interesting
he has principles, which
he
is
yep,
established
yep.
very strongly at the end of the movie.
He definitely has principles.
So you get then it comes back to Ray riding the train, just trying to get out of Bruges.
Hmm.
And then you get he looks kind of awkward at the station guy walking up and down. And he goes, "You Irish?" He goes, "Yeah." And then the Canadian guy that he
You
knocked out at the restaurant is there, and he gets
you hit
arrested and
you heat
brought
the
back to
Canadian?
Bruges.
Did I heat the Canadian? You hit the Canadian. And he points to the Canadian. So Ray looks over and the Canadian immediately goes, That's him. That's the asshole."
Right, right. So
We're taking you back
he,
to Bruges.
so
Brilliant.
he gets arrested and gets brought back to Bruges
Right.
against his will.
Yeah.
And so
And then
then
he's in
Chloe
yeah,
bails him out.
yep, bails him out.
But instead of going somewhere, instead of trying to get out again,
Which
he
does it.
just hangs
Oh
out with
man.
Chloe. And so then you get where Harry and Ray are going to go somewhere more private,
Yep.
presumably so Harry can kill, or Harry and
So
Ken, I
yeah,
mean. Presumably so Harry can kill Ken.
they talk about the cathedral tower because
Yeah,
it's the middle of the evening. There's likely not going to be anybody up there. I mean, 360 stairs or however many, they probably will not even. They'll hear the gunshot, but they won't know the significance of it.
yeah,
They'll just hear a pop from the distance. So in the Untouchables, the gunshots are more
right.
that kind of thing. In this movie, it's more pop, and then it's
Which
over, which is how
I
gunshots
like
are.
the
Very
accuracy
very
because
loud pops. Yeah.
it's very loud pops even with the silencer though, because that's
Yes. Yes.
silencers do not fully silence guns.
Yeah.
They don't like
Silencers are not silencers.
no,
they yeah.
they're suppressors.
Sometimes, especially for rifles and that kind of thing, you still kind of need ear protection for suppressors
Right.
because they still can do damage to your
It sounds
ears.
like a loud kind of clap,
It is, yeah.
you
It is
know.
a very loud kind of clap, whereas an unsuppressed gunshot is much more
It's
it's a
deafening, but
pop. Yes, it's a deafening pop. Your ears will ring if you are close enough to it.
yeah, so they start heading over to the tower,
Yep.
and then ironically
And we
Ray
meet
and
the guy
Chloe
that
are
we
right
haven't.
there just making
Yep.
out,
And that's a
and they
good
just walk
shot.
right past
That's
them.
a great shot.
It
Just
is a great
following
shot.
Harry and Ken, just going to the tower to one of their dooms.
Right.
What I like is they even bring back the dude who is just guarding, or not guarding, but like the tower
He's taking his job a
clerk.
little too seriously, tower
Yes.
guard
He
to
yeah.
like
Yes.
pay for admission.
Yep. So Ken goes there in the first scene, tries to pay for entrance. It's €5, and he only has 4.90, so he has to pull out a €100 bill instead, or I think it's
Yeah.
100 or 50 or
I
something
think
like
it
that.
was a 50, but either way,
But
it's a
if it
large
was a
bill
fit,
for
yeah,
what he
it's a
needed.
large bill for what you need. So he has to make change instead of just accepting the fact that I've got €4.90
I'm
and
10 cents, I'm
change.
10
Yeah,
euros short.
I'm
Yeah.
10 cents short. Can you just spot me here? And
Yeah, and the
he's
guy's
taking
like,
it
"No."
seriously.
So the guy is taking his job very seriously again because they closed
Yep,
early because the day
because of
before
the
a
the American having a heart attack on the steps.
American had a heart attack and died up
Close
there,
that
so
loophole, or
they closed early.
close that loose end.
Yeah, and but then Ray, being the short-tempered maniac that he is,
Oh,
just
Harry.
like, yeah, I mean, yeah, Harry, I mean, just completely just beats that guy, and Ken just walks past him before it even
Well, he was
happens
probably
because
just
he
going to
knows
tell
what's
him
gonna
off,
happen.
or like, or he was going to like do something to force him away. But
Yeah,
once the tower guy puts his finger
he
on
literally
Harry
tries to
multiple
bribe him.
times, he does. But he's just like, we just need to be up here for 20 minutes. Our business will be done, and then we can go. And he's taking it too seriously. He puts his finger on Harry's forehead and taps him multiple times to, and Harry just dead look
Loses
expression.
it.
He
Yeah,
yes, you're a dead man now. Congratulations. So he punches him, and then I think hits him with the grip of his I think it's a 1911. The grip of his gun. Um and all the while, another great shot, so many great shots. The shot that is happening, Harry's beating the guy, but Ken is just walking forward like it's got to be done. Whatever.
right.
But that's
But so then you get the scene actually up on the tower where
mhm.
they're talking, and Ken actually manages to talk Harry down from killing him by telling him that he respects what he does so much and he understands the consequences of his actions of letting Ray leave, to the point that he's like, I've accepted my death, so I'm not going to fight you up here.
Well,
So you can just kill me.
not only that, but Ken brings up the fact that obviously with their relationship as boss and employee, Ken is kind of respecting Harry himself, which I think
Right,
would get through to Harry, knowing the character that Harry is, more than
right,
talking about Ray. Because no matter what happens to Ken, he's gonna kill Ray. So that's that. I don't think Ray was ever going to be able to talk Harry out of it, especially knowing that eventually what happens to Ken is he shoots him in the leg.
right. He shoots Ken in the leg. He's like,
Yeah.
why, did you thought you were gonna get away with
Mhm.
nothing?
So uh, the important bit for this is as they're starting to go down the steps, I assume they didn't get far because of how hobbled Ken is at this point.
Right,
And Eric spots Chloe with Ray at the restaurant
right,
and
outside.
runs up the stairs. Obviously, he's going to be faster than Ken and Harry. Runs up the stairs. Uh, Harry draws the gun because he doesn't know who's there, and Eric says, I can't remember how he addresses
He
him. I think he
says
just
it's
calls him as,
Eric.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
Eric from
Are you the
earlier.
blind boy?
Are you the blind boy? And he says Ray is in the restaurant out or in the cafe outside, and so that breaks the tension, and now Ken and Harry have to resolve their differences
So they're
in a
like
violent manner.
they're already like he's already helping him down the stairs, so they're like right
Right.
up on each other,
Yeah.
and then just Harry gets the gun and he ends up shooting Ken in the
In the
neck.
neck. Yep.
And Ken just starts bleeding out up there, and then
And then
Eric and Harry make their way down the stairs and leave
yep.
Ken there. At this point, Ken knows that he's going down just to just straight up just murder Ray right there, then and there. So
Not only that, but there's absolutely no way with how much blood is coming out of him that he is going to make it down the
oh,
steps
absolutely.
without dying. So
So he realizes the best way that he can
is
possibly warn him is by
is
going
by going
up
back
and
up. Yeah.
throwing himself off, which this is a great another tie around back to the first time that he went up the tower and he couldn't use the coins
Hmm.
to buy it. Now he
Exactly.
has these coins and he's dropping the coins
And
off
he's
the top of the
to
tower
let
to
people
warn the
know, yeah,
people
to warn the people to stay
underneath.
away. Yep.
Yeah, so then people start backing away from that spot, like, why are these coins falling? And then he throws himself off, which gets Ray's attention and then lets Ray notice that Harry's
Hmm.
there, and then you get the final chase scene, which
So
this is when,
something I will say,
yeah,
it's a pretty small thing, for a movie that stayed realistic up to this point. I could absolutely believe he was able to throw himself off before Harry got to the bottom. I mean, 360 steps, that's no light thing. What I can't imagine, if it's 360 steps, I don't know how many flights that would be. Obviously, it's more than 100 feet.
oh,
Yeah,
him living.
him living at the end of that, G forces would turn his brain into mush. He would be a dead man on spot.
Right, because he doesn't notice Harry, he just goes up to his friend Ken and then Ken gives him his last little message in his dying breaths that
Right. He says
Harry's there.
Harry's here, get my gun, and of course the gun's broken because he landed on it.
Right.
Um, and he says, "Where's my gun?" Which is set up earlier. Ken puts Ray's six shooter revolver Smith and Wesson in a drawer in the hotel. So that's set
Right.
up from earlier. Even that shot, that small shot of where did the revolver go, even that's set up for it not to be on Ken's body when he dies. So
Right.
another small nugget, but
So then Harry spots him and
the
they
chase
start the
scene,
chase,
the
which
chase. I
the chase scene's
Go ahead.
great.
I
Part
Yeah.
of it is the way that the score, which has just kind of been like a gentle piano score this whole time, despite all of the darkness and weird
Yeah, it
comedy in the
changes
movie.
into like a rock song or
It gets like this screechy, crunchy rock guitar, and
yeah.
it's incredible. Like I love it so much that it just kind of
It,
goes to this different
yeah,
place because the movie never went there.
I will say it feels so wrong, but whatever. I'm for it. It is
To me,
kind of
it's
weird.
like it's wrong, but it's right.
Yeah.
Like it's perfect.
It's the
Like,
Maryland flag. It's so terrible, it's good. Oh
well,
man.
I don't know. I just it has such a good, just kind of like action quality to it, which the movie at this point has not dipped into being an action movie at
Right.
any point.
Yeah,
So
this is the kickoff to the
right, which this is
we'll
the very end
we'll
of the
get
movie
there
too.
eventually, but I just love this the scene between Maria, Ray, and Harry, and Maria says something to the effect of just put your both your guns down and settle this with words, and Harry immediately snaps back with, "No, we can't do that. It's the shootout." Like breaking the
Right.
fourth wall almost like, "No, we can't do that. This is the climax."
Yeah.
But something I will note with the chase, obviously, because Harry climbed up steps and went down steps, he's going to be more winded. So of course Ray is going to slip past him. That it's a small thing, but I love it when chase scenes
Right. He's
actually work
outpacing
out
him in the
with
chase.
right with logic
Right.
and
And he's
he
older, like Harry's older
right
than him.
he's
Yeah.
older, he's winded, he's probably a crack shot, but shooting a moving target is terribly inaccurate, and also when you're winded it's much harder, and also you
Yeah.
have to stop to aim. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
believe
once you
that he
get to
wouldn't be able
that
to hit him.
the stalemate in the hotel
Hmm.
with Marie not leaving and everything. She's
Is
like,
it
"No, this is
Maria or
my
Maria?
hotel. You can
Have I been
go
saying her name wrong the
shoot
entire
each
time?
other somewhere else." And so then they come up with the very just like darkly funny conclusion of like, okay, I can go slip out the window and jump in the canal and try to make it from there. You can run around, and he's like, "Do I run around to the left or the right?" He's like, "It's right there. It's literally just a few steps." um, and so you get them trying to just work out their plan to kill each other or
Right.
to for him to get away or be killed,
Well,
basically.
it's all purely based on the fact, and is she Maria or Maria? Marie, not Maria. So
Yeah,
obviously Marie is pregnant and also an innocent in all this. So they're just
right,
trying to make sure that she is in no way involved.
right. Because they have their morals, they have their standards, their
Yeah, that
principles.
yes, right. They're hitmen, but um they they're professionals and
That's the whole premise of the movie is that,
right.
he killed a kid, which was never supposed to happen. So they're
Hmm.
not trying to have any collateral damage. That's not what they do.
Yeah.
So yeah, then you get where then Ray jumps out the window like he says, and fortunately he ends up on a boat,
Yeah.
to his luck. But then
Oh,
Harry still comes around the corner.
an important
But
bit as well. Right before the stalemate, he has to reload his 9 mil or 45 ACP 1911, and so he doesn't have any more regular rounds. Important bit. He has the dum dums.
right,
So this movie even shows him reloading the dum dums.
it's just very well thought out.
Seriously though, he thought of everything.
Right. And then,
Um,
like, if you're gonna make a movie this kind of self-contained in the way that it is, you
yeah,
may as well have the details down. That was my problem with Pitch Black. Pitch Black is a very contained movie, but it felt like the details weren't all there.
yeah, I
This
agree.
movie is a similarly contained movie. It's not as like it's not trying to do as
It's
much.
more simple, and that's
Right,
a benefit
right.
in every
So,
sense.
because then if you're doing a simple story, then you really have to flesh out the details to make it feel more rich, more
Right.
textured. So, and this movie does that in excellent fashion.
Impeccably. It's
Yes.
really good.
So yeah, then you get Harry pointing the gun at him, and he's on the boat drifting away, and he's like, "Oh, no
Oh,
way,
it's
it's
too
too
far.
hard."
Yeah.
And instead of like trying to move or anything, he just like thinks he's not gonna get shot, and then he just gets shot.
That's when wisdom over age kind of thing. Sure,
Yeah,
sure Ray is more spry and he can jump on a boat, but
right.
uh, being a
So
crack shot like that, he probably
yeah,
could hit that shot.
then the pursuit continues to the point where they end up. Ray ends up kind of very much bleeding out in pain, stumbling onto the film
Film
set
set.
going on, which now has this weird smoky atmosphere with all of these like skeleton things. Looks very much kind of like the art that was in the movie earlier,
Right.
and kind of re-emphasizes this kind of purgatory state of where they are.
And
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 with
they find
that,
and they find Jimmy, who Jimmy recognizes him
yeah,
instantly, and of course they are quote unquote friends. They're acquaintances who at least know each other. So Jimmy, of all
right,
people, is the one to approach him because he sees, maybe because he sees he's injured, or maybe because he wants to tell him off, or but he is dressed as a school child,
right,
which is an important bit.
right. And then so as Harry catches up with Ray and Ray is approaching Jimmy, Harry shoots at Ray again, shooting him multiple times,
Yeah,
and it's
three or
very
four
much
times.
reflective of the priest scene.
Yep,
And but in this
in
situation,
every way.
Jimmy takes the bullet on the other side of it. And which this is kind of one of the more interesting bits of the movie to me when Harry comes up and sees that he killed what he thinks is a child.
Right.
And he then goes through, he's like, "Oh, well, I got to stick to my principles." And before he can shoot himself, Ray really tries to tell him, no, it's not a child, even
Yeah.
though he's trying to kill Ray.
Yep.
So, like, it's just, I feel like that's almost him kind of coming back from that, trying to save somebody from doing something because they didn't do this thing that they thought they did,
Not
you
not
know?
only that, but obviously Ray doesn't think before he speaks, so obviously he's
Right,
going to say whatever he thinks. So,
right. But either way, then Harry kills himself because of his principles. He
mhm.
did the same thing that he was gonna kill this guy for, so I was like, well, I gotta stick to my principles.
Yeah.
And then the movie wraps up with Ray getting picked up in an ambulance and him having narration come back in for the ending, talking about what does he specifically say there?
Oh,
Trying to think. Yeah, he ties it
oh,
back to the beginning and
yeah,
he's saying how he doesn't want to die in Bruges,
yeah,
of all places. But then
in
he's like,
fucking Bruges.
maybe, but then he kind of compares it to purgatory almost, of like maybe Bruges, maybe he's being living a life in Bruges
Right.
would be purgatory for him.
It's
And
it.
then it just kind of fades out, and that's how the movie ends.
Yep.
You don't get a confirmation of whether or not he lives or dies.
Nope.
Apparently, there's a deleted scene where you get, or in the original script, you get a more definitive answer that he does live.
Hmm.
But the movie decided, I think smartly, to end it on a more ambiguous note.
Especially
Because,
because, yeah, especially with the notion or the theory, uh,
right,
the
the
slightly
thematic
s- this
elements,
yeah the slightly supported theory that this actually is purgatory.
right. Yeah, the thematic elements that lean into
Yeah.
those aspects of the film. Now, getting into the scoring for the actual episode. So, going into our usual categories, the alternative category that we put for this movie is it's comedy,
Comedy
because
instead of
that is what it is.
action,
And
or
yeah,
instead of period or
period
historical
accuracy,
accuracy for
yeah,
Untouchables. Yeah,
that we
so
did on
comedy.
Untouchables.
Hmm.
So this one being that's what we figure it most closely resembles. That's and what I think is significant to the movie as well.
Most
But
definitely.
yes, our first category is writing. If so, this being still a new show, our rating system is we go from 0 to 2 on a number of different categories, all adding up to 20 total. And I'm botching this here. I'll
So
just start
so yeah,
over.
so zero is what we is it's the bottom end of the spectrum. We don't like it. One can be considered good, and two is going to be considered great. We left it vague on purpose because neither of us would actually rate this movie what it is. and unless it just happens to be that way. But this would not be the metrics that we would use if we were actually rating movies. This is very casual.
Yes. Yes. That's just our show's way of kind of building on our ideas to have a review
We are opening up a
score.
conversation in a way that likely not a lot of people are going to find fault with because that's how casual it is. It's
Yeah. So the first category to talk about within this movie is the writing. Obviously, this was nominated for an Academy Award for writing. It won a BAFTA for writing. It's a great script. Its strongest quality is absolutely
the
its
script.
writing,
Yeah.
and it's a two.
It's absolutely too. I haven't seen obviously that many films or that many films compared to you, but I hold that this is the best written movie that I have seen.
Oh
When it
yeah,
comes down to script and what the script does for the characters, plot, and themes, 100% this is the best movie I've ever
yeah.
seen.
I mean, for the kind of movie it is, there's a lot of movies that have excellent writing, excellent scripts that are more sparse in kind of what they're trying to do with the dialogue and other aspects of it.
Right.
But this one being a very talky, lower budget kind of film with a very British sensibility,
Yes,
it just
it
kind of
has it doesn't have the effects that a Transformers film can get $300 million based on. It purely has words and it has to stick to that, and it does
and it
flawlessly.
draws you in more than those $300 million Transformers
Absolutely,
movies, just
absolutely
with
it
its
does.
words. So it's yeah,
I looked it
definitely
up
its
because I wanted to
strongest
feel
quality.
sad. Michael Bay is the third highest grossing director in American history.
Yeah, that's not surprising,
Yeah,
just
but
based on the Transformers franchise
it's
alone.
very annoying.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, okay, I have a weird take on Michael Bay. I actually really think that he's a very definitive filmmaker in his own right, and that alone is worthy of respect for him in his craft. But I don't like what he does.
Respect wouldn't be the word I would use, but
I, I
I
I respect that he has a
ac-
definitive style that you can tell it's a
acknowledgement
Michael Bay movie.
acknowledgement would be
Yeah.
what I
The
would.
fact that I could watch 1 minute of a Michael Bay movie and know it's a Michael Bay movie, I think is something that is not something you're able to attribute to a lot of different filmmakers. So I give him credit where it's due.
I think that could be a good thing and could be a bad thing.
Right. It's for me, it's a bad thing.
For me, it's a horrible thing. It's like hearing Ozzy Osbourne's voice. You only know it's Ozzy, so
Right. All right. Getting into the world building is our next category. We separate it from the writing because I think that there's a few more departments and aspects going into this
absolutely
within the actual production. And in this case, the whole world of this movie is
is
just
just
Bruges,
Bruges. Yep.
and it is very specifically captured. The movie was shot
Yep.
in
And
Bruges.
the I I want to say the only scene not supposed to be in Bruges, roll credits. The only shot not supposed to be in Bruges is the priest killing scene. But even
Right.
that was
That's in London.
filmed on
Yeah.
location in
Right. I
Bruges.
figured may as well.
Yeah,
There's no point
exactly.
not
You
filming that on
just need
location.
a church, a medieval church,
Right.
or just a Catholic church, and they found
Yeah.
one. So yeah.
But for the what the movie is going for, it
Hmm.
captures its like the really the scenery, the setting of the whole movie being in Bruges, um, being such a focal point of the movie. It really like hammers that home in every department and aspect, and I think I can't not give it a two.
Yeah, so the story from Martin McDonagh is he went to Bruges, and Ken and Ray are his two side personalities of how he viewed Bruges. One of his Ken side was infinitely intrigued with the medieval architecture and the fact that it's one of the most well preserved medieval city.
Mm,
Then the Ray one was the nightlife is terrible and it's pretty boring if you think about it. So
right.
he wanted to capture that and he definitely did.
Which I feel because every time I go somewhere, like when I went to Italy and some
Yep.
other places, like I go somewhere and it's like, do I want to be like go and just do the tourist traps? Which
Yeah.
if you just do that and you like have the mindset of like I'm just gonna do that, it's gonna be fun, then it's fun.
If you have the
It's a good
passion
time.
for
There's
it,
no problem with that.
it's better than most places.
Yeah, but then I have a very cynical side of myself too. That's like, ah, this is stupid. You know, like I just want to do something like,
Hmm.
or that's not so touristy and dumb.
Yeah, because sometimes, and I'm kind of the same way. I'm all for a museum if it's something I enjoy, but I recognize that when I'm an American tourist abroad, I am an American tourist abroad, and people judge me
Right,
as such. So really, I just want to be like where Ray wants to go, essentially a pub. I just want to see where all the people actually living there, what they do, because if somebody's going to know what the most fun thing to do in a certain place, it's going to people be the people who live there. So
right.
that's how I view it. But yes, the world building is it's simple, but it's effective because it's only trying to be what it is, and that's Bruges. So
Yeah.
it's good. I agree with the two. Um,
Characters. So there's not a lot of characters in the movie. It's very localized. Like we talked about, there's really only three major
right.
characters with a few key side characters. But even the side characters are pretty well fleshed out. And then the very minor characters are all impactful and have a point.
Not only impactful, but they're consistent. Tower guy,
Right.
Marie,
The
um,
Canadian,
the Canadian,
the alcoves
the
guy.
Canadian's girlfriend who swings a bottle.
Yeah, they're all memorable
They
and
are, yeah,
interesting and dynamic characters, even in very brief amount of screen time.
and
They have a
all of them
purpose.
have killer lines.
Right.
Um, yeah. So yeah, I'd say this is a two for me.
Absolutely.
We didn't even talk well in our short little talking about the characters. We talked about the minor ones, but the major ones are a huge home run.
Right. Absolutely.
They
All
are
three of them.
all three of them are spectacular.
Yeah. I don't remember if I the BAFTA it yes, okay. So it also got nominated for supporting
So
actor for
I think it's important to note as well. I think it was nominated for best comedy or musical for the Golden Globes, but
uh,
I
I
believe
intentionally don't bring up the Golden
the
Globes
Golden
because they
Globes.
don't matter.
That's fair.
Like
Then again,
70 foreign press people in the US vote on that.
for
That doesn't
me,
count.
most of the in my opinion, the awards are quite arbitrary when it comes to what they actually award. I think the nomination is much more impactful than winning the award because winning the award is it's a popularity contest. It's not
Right. It's a good
they don't care
resume
about
thing.
that. I'd say just having the nomination for screenplay is for me more important than just winning the award.
Yeah. But at the
Nomination
BAFTAs,
carries more weight
uh
for me than
yeah.
for that.
At the BAFTAs, which obviously I bring up the BAFTAs a lot in
Oh,
this video
they
because it
do
is a British
ensemble, right?
film. It got nominated for editing, supporting actor for Brendan Gleeson, and best British film. Like they have a special accolade just for
Is it
the
is it
British films.
obviously I don't know my awards, but
Oh, and it won best
is it the
screenplay.
Emmys or is it the BAFTAs that have best ensemble when it comes to acting?
The Screen Actors Guild. I don't know if the BAFTAs
Screen
do. They
Actors Guild
might.
does. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, because it's an acting award. That's kind of their biggest one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, the cast deserves every bit of credit because I would say uh they and their characters specifically though as far as this category because we
Hmm.
do separate characters and actors.
Yeah,
um
characters is more so of a
but
writing
they're all
or what the
dynamic and
writing
interesting.
actually shows.
Ray is so like you hate him at first because he's just like I said at the beginning, he's just such a prick. And then
He
as
kind
the
of is
movie
throughout
goes
the
on,
entire movie,
he is throughout the whole movie, but you understand him more. It gives
yeah,
him layers and context.
he's
Yeah, they're
somehow
also
charming when he's a
good.
prick though. It's so weird.
Yeah, yeah, so characters definitely too.
Yep.
Directing is the next category. I will say, out of every category in this, directing is the one I'm most inclined to go towards one. However, I still trend towards two here because of how well he handles the different sequences. And as far as a director is concerned, one of the biggest thing a director has to do is to get the performances out of the actors,
Yeah.
and he does that so well in this. And it's
Yeah.
clearly just well constructed. He understood. He didn't just write a script that he could give to somebody else. He wrote a script that he knew exactly how to make the movie he wanted to make, and he executed making that movie exactly the way I think he wanted to make it. So I think that the directing deserves that extra bump up. I think that the only thing that I say to get it where I inclined a little towards a one is because it's not necessarily like there aren't a lot of shots in the movie where I'm compelled, and it's more serviceable in terms of its presentation. I think for the most part there are a lot of interesting shots, but not as much as like one of the great movies directed. But because of just how well everything is put together, I'm gonna give it the extra bump up.
So
And
so
part of that is being a first feature.
obviously I'm not a film guy, so I don't know exactly what directing means, but I have my own view of directing. It's the person, he just has cards in his hand. They are just cards in his hand until he eventually puts it up as a house of cards. So him doing what he has to do in order for the cards to fit in
Right.
such a way, and it's simplistic, and it's not very it's not a very deep thought, but that's how I see it, and that's how I would say he did very well in that aspect.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I give him a little bit of extra credit because this is his first
Hmm.
feature. This is like one of the strongest first features I've ever seen from a
Yeah,
filmmaker. And it's incredible too because with his following movies, he pretty much just stays in that $15 million range. And you see him get better and better as a director in those movies.
yeah,
So this one going back to it, it's clearly a little bit scrappier in terms of how he's doing it, even though his later movies don't necessarily have a bigger budget even than what he had here. He's able to use it in a way that it feels like his budgets are growing as his movies are going along,
yeah.
just because of that.
I guess that's another thing as well. I kind of think of a director as you do with what you have. You make do
Right.
with what you have, and you try to excel at it. He definitely did for me for this.
Absolutely. So for yeah, two again.
Yeah. I I don't think To Earn a Two for us should be it's the one of the best directed movies ever made, because I don't think this is. I think it's one of
No,
the
it's just
best
great. If
written
it's
movies ever
good
made.
or great, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have a three for best ever.
No,
We
we
have
don't.
one and two. Good or great, and it's
We
great.
could probably make a tier list for the best directed movies ever, but
Sure.
I, again, not being a film guy, would know how to quantify that, or
We'll just
qualify
throw you
that
into the
rather.
deep end, Kyle.
Please no, I'll drown.
Okay.
All right, visuals. Obviously, there's no like CGI or visual effects to speak
No.
of, which I think is a positive for me,
With a
because
movie
those
like
things can
this,
kind of
apparently
age.
they yeah, apparently they had a scene that was cut because that took place in the past when Harry was younger.
Hmm.
That they cut because the CGI didn't look good. So, which I think the movie works better without that scene.
I absolutely do think that works better, actually, because the more mysterious Harry is to me, the better of a
Right.
character he is to me.
Yeah. Harry not having a flashback with a younger actor playing Harry, I think works
Especially in
better.
one-off movies, flashbacks don't really work for me. The
No.
priest scene obviously makes sense because it's the plot point. It's not a flashback. It's the whole plot, the where it starts. So you have to have that somewhere. But yeah, having a flashback scene to the third most important character in a movie is kind of weird. Even if he is the antagonist. Although I'd argue
Yeah.
that in Bruges itself is probably more of an antagonist than Harry,
Yeah.
um, at least to Ray. But I will say, with the visuals and everything like that, it's straightforward and simple enough. I don't really know what it gets wrong. In fact, the
I
continuity
don't think it
of
gets
visuals
yeah, I
and
don't think
everything
it
like
gets
that.
anything I don't think it gets anything wrong necessarily.
Hmm.
And I'm not here to like dog on the visuals because I'm not at all. I don't think it's bad at all. I don't necessarily think it hits that great level for me in terms of how the film looks. Part of that is, I think, the first time director quality that I was talking about before, which has an appeal to it, but
Sometimes it can be endearing.
yeah, it can be endearing. In this case, once again, I think that it looks good. I just don't think it looks great. There's nothing that really pops about it. It captures the scenery of it
Yeah.
well enough, but I don't think the movie like is this movie I'm going to watch because of the way it looks. I'm watching it because of the performances, because of the acting,
And because of the
the
writing, yeah.
way there are certain movies that I will watch just because of the way it looks, and this movie's not one of those. I think in terms of visually, it's not super inspired, it's not super memorable. It's just
Yeah.
solid. It's good, solid filmmaking. So this is a category I would give a 1.
I'm inclined to agree actually because I do like some of the shots. Some of the shots resonate with me. It's more subjective though, and
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, I when it comes to the whole first time directing type thing, I actually do find most of it to be endearing in a way.
Yeah.
I just want them to get that
Oh, I always have a
like
soft spot
beginner's
for it,
luck.
for sure.
I mean, sometimes it can just be enduring, like with tedious
Right.
directors. I'm not going to name names because I've already named some,
Right.
but um, but yeah,
Yeah, once again, this it looks good. It looks very good. It's
yeah,
just I wouldn't quite say it's great. And if we're basing it on that kind of quality, then I'm gonna say just 1
yeah,
is where I'd put it.
and yeah, I'll agree.
We did skip over acting because I already marked it as
Yeah,
2
no,
because I
we've
felt like
talked
it was a
about it. Yeah,
no-brainer. I felt
we've
like it was
talked
a
about the
no-brainer.
we don't have to say anything. We'd just be gushing. So
Right.
yeah,
We'll just
we
move
can just
past
call that a
acting.
2 and move along.
All right,
So
editing is for me a 2. I think
yeah,
it's perfectly edited for the type of movie it is, with all of the kind of callbacks and circular nature of everything. It
oh
all
man,
just
yeah,
flows
they
well.
really thought about
And
everything.
right, that's the attention to detail stuff. It really came through in the editing as well. So yeah, moving on to sound. Um, Sound is something in this movie that I think is a little unassuming, but actually pretty great, because like you said, we talked about the gun sound effects and
Yep.
how other movies get that really wrong, and this
Yeah,
movie
and
doesn't.
especially if you see the trailer, it's very campy, only shows the comedy, but it makes it seem like it would have the gunshots of like John Wick.
Because like the trailers edited was
Right.
like
Yeah.
those type of like old video game gun sound effects
Yep.
almost.
Yeah. And we like I can't remember if we talked about that for Untouchables, but that kind of thing is it takes me out of the scene. Like
It's a
I
little
love the
irritating.
John Wick movies. But the some of the gunshot sounds, and especially when he's I think it's the second one, the second John Wick movie where him and Common, the
Right,
rapper,
are shooting at each
are
other with
shooting at
this
each other
walking down.
with suppressed guns, and no one reacts whatsoever. And they don't shoot
I
like
just
just
yeah.
one or two. They shoot like dozens, and
I just accept in
no
those
one does
movies that
anything.
there's some magical quality to whatever kind of world of assassins
Yeah,
like gear that they have.
but I mean, ugh.
But yeah, no, I'm with you though. Like a realistic sound effect, it doesn't
The
really
realistic sound
sound right.
effect of
But
everything kind of works, and I think oddly enough somehow, and I don't know how I didn't know this, I had two songs on one of my favorite Spotify playlists from this movie, from the
oh,
score,
really? Nice.
unknowingly.
That's
So
awesome.
I that
Yeah,
apparently I like the
another
score.
yeah, two more things to note about the sound is one, the score.
The
Carter
score.
Burwell score is great. It's really effective the whole time. It's very simple for the
I'd go
most
for a
part until
piano
you get to
score.
that chase scene where I love the crunchy, screechy guitar like ramp up at the end of the movie. But yeah, the whole time it's effective. I think Carter Burwell is one of the most
I
underappreciated
will
composers.
say typically like a quick change in like I noted for the Untouchables that the Untouchables has a very strange action score, but mostly that could be attributed to the 1980s. So
Yeah, that was more
that
so.
was yeah,
Yeah,
that was more just generic formulaic 1980s action score. But
I
for
mean, one
this
of the
one,
most iconic pieces of action score from the 1980s was Axel F. So
oh yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. But I will say I didn't get taken out of the movie from that shift. And in fact, before you brought it up,
no,
I didn't even recognize like that
right.
there
It just
was
kind of
anything.
ramps
It
up
just
with
kind
it.
of
It's
works
great.
with it somehow.
Yeah.
Um,
And also one other underappreciated thing about the sound. In a lot of Irish films, I do end up putting on subtitles or with Irish speaking people because there's a lot of very fast dialogue
yeah,
usually with heavy accents.
some Irish
And in
people are
this,
not speaking English.
there are heavy accents and fast speaking dialogue. And part of it is probably in how they execute the performances, but
Part of it's probably
also
the
in
acting,
the
yeah.
sound. I never had to put on subtitles for
No,
this movie, and I never
and
missed anything.
uh,
So
yeah, there are a few things I can recall, but they're very small and they are immediately. One example I can say is It's after the park scene, so they're talking about it, and Ray. So they yeah he asks why can't I take a train back to London, and Ken says, Bec- we can't bring you down there, you'll be a dead man. And Ray says, but I want to be a dead man. But with his Irish accent and the acting that he's doing, he's it's very emotional. What I heard first was, but I don't want to be a dead man. And I'm like, wait a second. The events of 5 minutes ago really,
Right.
really harp on that, and really put a damper on that. And then immediately Brendan Gleeson's Ken says, no, you don't want to be a dead man. So it's obviously,
Right.
oh, he did say, but I want to be a dead man. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So for
even for
sound,
small things like
yeah.
that, they immediately just it clicks back to, like,
Right.
I never misunderstood any.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a two for sound.
Yep.
Comedy for this movie. This movie makes me laugh a lot.
Was surprised. I've seen this movie probably 4 times, and I still laughed at some of the things.
Yeah, like
It's very
it's
shock
really
comedy.
dark humor. It's dark humor, pitch black humor. And I mean that's a staple of McDonough's work. And here it's as strong as it is in anything. It's just there are moments that are shocking and
Hmm.
then there are moments that are funny and there are moments that are shocking and funny. It is one of the best just dark comedies that I think has been
Yeah,
written.
somehow probably one of the funniest movie. Like, if I were going to recommend a funny movie, I would probably recommend this, because I can't see how no one's going to laugh eventually. Even like
Uh
even like
yeah.
there's gotta
The
there can't
highly
be
sensitive
many.
types I would not recommend this to
Well,
because
that's
they
only
will
for
not
certain
laugh.
things, and even there are sensitive things said, but it's thrown both ways. So
Right.
it's not so much making light or stereotyping. It's more so it's for me, it's more so laughing with, not laughing
It
at.
uses the heaviness to it imbues the heaviness into the comedy, which makes the comedy somehow richer in this movie
Yeah,
because
it
it so like taps into that darker side of us.
it feels like some stand-up comedies that I've seen, where they don't they poke fun, but it's more of like a bring up something to make fun of, but to laugh with, not laugh at.
Yeah,
So it's not in, the intent is not to hurt, it's to poke fun.
right.
Um, and
So
it's very clearly suggested or heavily supported that the movie isn't supporting Ray with, or Jimmy, or
no,
anybody with what they say.
they're hitmen. They're terrible. They're all bad people,
Yeah,
effectively. They're murdering people for money.
exactly.
So
Um,
yeah, you know what kind of movie you're getting into.
mhm.
Impact is our final
And
category that
this
we always
this
talk
is
about.
why I brought up the trailer, because if we're talking about marketing with a movie, that trailer probably didn't help put butts in seats. It's
Oh no.
I wouldn't have
I,
seen that movie have had I seen that trailer, because I would have
so
thought
this
that trailer would
movie,
have just or this movie would have just been a generic fire or shootout kind of movie.
right,
So
and that was obviously the American trailer for it, which in America it only made around $8 million,
yeah,
which isn't very much at all for a movie here.
yeah,
Uh, and in the UK, it made like $11 million total in the across all of what's considered the UK.
yeah,
Which it obviously did better there than here. It's still not like a massive hit. It made 39 million on a $15 million budget. So it was profitable, if not only like barely. But I think the impact of this movie doesn't as much lie in its actual exposure,
yeah,
but I do think that it vaulting Martin McDonagh to become a very prominent name in Hollywood with, I mean, Three Billboards for the type of movie that it is made almost $130 million worldwide on a very similar budget to this. Uh, his most recent movie, Banshees of Inisherin, didn't make that much money, but it made 49 million.
well, I
But
think
more
people I
so,
think people I guess
yeah,
it's not underestimate, but it's they don't acknowledge as much the power of the American market.
yeah.
So
I think
obviously, if you're making an Irish movie or a British movie, and
right.
It's not going to resonate very well with Americans relatively.
Right. And this is still like the late 2000s was really right when they were kind of globalizing the market for box office. Like
That's another
that's when it
question that I
really
or
kind of
something I need
hit
to
that
figure out.
point. So this is right on that kind of cusp of the global box office being the most significant thing because throughout the 2000s we were getting more and more of that. But then because budgets for movies kept inflating and inflating, and they still do, unfortunately, to this day. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, not like global impact in terms of people who have seen it, but it did build a cult following and it did establish a director who's now highly sought after within film. Like within the film world itself is where its impact truly lies. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's one of the most influential movies that exists out there though either. I'm not gonna pretend like this movie had a massive impact on
Okay, so I wanted
culture.
to look this up because it reminded me. So this movie came out in the United States February 2008. That was right smack dab in the middle of the housing market crash. So
Mm,
I think that also can affect, just in the way that COVID and quarantine
right.
can affect. Obviously, COVID and quarantine affected the box office. It basically plunged it into like the lowest it's ever been, I imagine. But obviously, the 2007 2008 market crash probably had some effect on whether people wanted to go see movies at a regular rate.
Yeah. So yeah, then that's kind of I do appreciate like I like putting things into the perspective of kind of what we're looking at,
Hmm.
especially when we're talking about it in context of like great American movies or great British movies. Like what kind of impact did this movie have? And in this case, I think it had a significant impact in a small way. So I wouldn't give it a 2 here. It would be a 1 for me.
It was a rock dropping in an ocean. Yeah, it made a difference, but
Yeah.
what it didn't do it, culturally, it's not even brought up
It's
at
still
all.
fairly unknown.
Yeah, it's
In
still
film
very
circles,
unknown.
it's very well known. Like
Yeah,
people like in my film classes, everybody knows this movie in those kind of areas. But yeah, in the general world, it's not that much impact. So I will
yeah,
say that's why I'm at a 1 with it.
yep.
Which
And I agree
that
completely.
puts us
That puts us at 18
that's
out of
an
20,
18 out of 20.
9 out of 10.
Yep, which I mean, it's a great movie. So that's our highest rated that we've done so far. And I think that that is also the best movie we watched so far.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that lines up with me.
That's actually very close to what I'd give it. I would 8.5 or 9 out of 10 is if I really
Yeah,
thought about it, that might change, but I if I sat down, that'd be my preliminary guess if I
yeah,
qualified it because and that's not even close to what other people give it. People I think it's I always bring up IMDb, but it's more so just to bring up something that can be a standard for us to bring up. We have to put it in context, of course. It's not the
right.
correct rating. No rating is the correct rating, but
Yeah,
um, IMDb I think gives it a 7.8 out of 10.
it's a 7.9, which on
7.9.
IMDb is great as far as I'm concerned
Yeah, because
because
the highest one is what 9.2, still Shawshank.
yeah, it's a weird scale and it
Yeah,
doesn't really hold much bearing because anybody can rate it any time.
correct.
But I do think that 7.9 is a really strong rating
Yeah,
on that site. And yeah, I think this movie kind of earns its positive reputation that it's made over the years, and it's a great movie. And I was really happy to revisit it
yep.
because this was only my second
It's a
time
great
watching it.
microcosm for me between perfect acting and perfect writing that I just
Yes.
love.
So to venture forward into completely new territory for the podcast and for you, um, first of all, I've noticed that all of our episodes have been very male centric in terms of the types of movies that we're watching.
That's true.
So I wanted to really divert from that. And I also wanted to watch something that was a lot newer and more recent. So the pick that I have for next week is the movie that came out this year. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Which I watched this movie in theaters and it's great. It's a great movie, and I'm excited for you to watch something totally outside your usual zone. Because it's basically a coming of age story for like a preteen girl
Hmm.
in I think it's set the 60s or the 70s. And yeah, I'm kind of excited to branch the podcast into a new direction.
Okay. Yep, I'll rinse it.
Or like I said before, you can watch it through my.
I don't want to judge it now. It's like The Untouchables. I know nothing about this movie. Literally didn't know it existed. So.
Right. So yeah, we'll watch Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, for next week's episode.
Yes, we will.